Peace, family. It's your brother Marc Lamont Hill. We are here on election night. I know a lot of you all, you can see my eyes are red. That's from a little bit of sickness, but mostly from fatigue, from watching what has been just an incredible roller coaster tonight. You know, people came in to this election with lots of thoughts, lots of feelings, um, lots of stress, lots of energy, lots of hope. And as time goes on, it seems that people are are losing their sense of hope, at least, and their sense of possibility that Kamala Harris can win. Other people are feeling vindicated that the Democratic Party cannot win a presidential election or hold on to the Senate while refusing to take a principled stance on the genocide in Gaza. There are people who are panicking. There are people who are still holding out hope that the very narrow path to victory that remains for Kamala Harris can be followed to victory, which would effectively require Vice President Harris to run the table. Um, I want to run just a couple of thoughts by y'all and talk a little bit and take questions and comments. There's a lot of people who are watching right now who don't normally rock with the channel, who are here, who are new to the channel. So I want to also point that out, that some of y'all don't be here a lot, so y'all might not know where I stand on this stuff. But let me be clear. I think that the re-election of Donald Trump is a crisis. I think it's a crisis of our, it represents a threat to a lot of stuff. But the status quo, that is to say, you know, re-electing a Democrat or re-electing a Republican, either one, is also a crisis of its own sort. I never underestimate the threat of Donald Trump and understand the urgency of not electing Donald Trump, of doing everything you can to keep Donald Trump out. But we also have to look at what happens when you don't run a campaign that is geared toward doing more than just stopping Donald Trump, but actually speaking to people's values, people's hopes, people's dreams, people's aspirations, making a distinction between yourself and President Biden, who obviously wasn't a very popular candidate. I'm watching in Michigan what might be the margin of victory for Donald Trump be very clearly attributable to the Harris campaign's failure to address a very simple demand, which is a ceasefire. Now, getting a ceasefire might not be easy, but demanding one is. When I look in Pennsylvania, where you have people saying no ceasefire, no vote, you're watching again a state that was very winnable for Kamala Harris go away. Wisconsin still may go Kamala Harris's way, and for clarity's sake, as of right now, Kamala Harris has a path to victory. The path to victory hasn't really changed. North Carolina was lost. North Carolina was lost. Michigan is not lost yet. Wisconsin's not lost yet. Pennsylvania is not lost yet. But they don't look good. Nevada, same thing. Obviously, California is going to come through. It's going to be somewhat of a competitive race. It's certainly going to be a down to the wire race. Each statewide race will be down to the wire. But it's also possible Donald Trump runs the table in those swing states, in which case this won't end up being a very competitive race by the end. Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I mean, they're all in play, but they're just not. They're just not looking good. And I think, you know, I don't want to do a kind of post-mortem on a race that's still going on, because Kamala Harris could win it. But whether Kamala Harris wins or loses, I hope that the Democrats are paying careful attention. I hope that the Republicans are watching and listening. I hope Republicans are. Um, I'm very confused here. I see comments coming in like this with Mark. Y'all kept letting Kamala off the hook. We needed your voices to demand more from her and get her to listen. I, that's I hear you. At the end of the day, Kamala, the ask was there, and the ask was clear. I don't think voters were ambiguous. I don't think they were unclear. I don't think they were confused about what they wanted from Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris wasn't unclear either about what she was willing to do. Um, the question just becomes, are we willing to accept what Kamala Harris is offering, or are we willing to um, embrace the possibility, a very real possibility of a Trump presidency? And voters in these states are making a very clear, a very clear response to that. Um, every time you hear "I am speaking," um, every time you hear that, um, I think that you're going to be reminded of uh, you're going to be reminded of the opportunity that was squandered when Joe Biden stepped down. There were a lot of people who had hope that a Kamala campaign would be different. There are a lot of people who had hope that there would at least be a slightly more progressive stance on Palestine, but there wasn't one. And I think when those protesters hit the stadium or the arena, wherever they were, and they were shouted down, and people applauded that, um, it set the table for a very bitter divide between people who are demanding justice in Palestine and people who are progressive on issues other than Palestine. I'm reading Kimmy Abayade Acosta's thing. He said, "You caped for Kamala for months. Let's not lie about it. You have people on here castigating us for not pronouncing her name right." Well, I don't think I'm lying about anything. I think I'm just offering my take. Um, I don't think I was insufficiently hard on Kamala. We may disagree, but it doesn't mean I'm lying. It just means we have a different opinion. Um, I think that at the end of the day, um, my critiques of Kamala Harris on Israel Palestine were what they were. I have a different analysis than some of you do. Um, I don't believe that it's okay to mispronounce her name on purpose. Obviously, people make mistakes, but the whole strategy of mispronouncing her name or questioning her racial identity or calling her a whore. I mean, the range of things that people were doing to Kamala Harris, I thought were unfair. And I've never, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. Again, it would be a mistake and not a lie if I'm misspeaking, but I don't think I've ever disagreed about the war crimes and about the moral indefensibility of the genocide in Gaza. I think I've been talking about that from day one. Um, for me, the calculation was never, so for me, the calculation was always a practical one, which was, what do you do if both of the outcomes in this race, both of the potential outcomes lead to genocide and lead to death? How do you make sense of that? How do you respond to that? How do you think through that? And I think I've been very open that it's been a struggle for me. Um, I mean, I went into the voting booth this morning thinking I was going to make one decision. I made a different one. I went into the voting booth this morning, and I think I made the most principled choice I could make. Um, but it's been a challenge. And I do think that you can have a critique of Kamala, I mean, a thorough critique of Kamala, and still defend her. from patriarchy and from misogyny and from racism. Um, if Mayor Pete were running, Pete Buttigieg, who I believe to be another neoliberal corporate candidate, dangerous, probably just as dangerous as Kamala, maybe more. And people were throwing homophobic slurs at him, I would defend him from the homophobic slurs. Um, when people say racist things against Nikki Haley, I defend her from the xenophobic, anti-Indian slurs, and still say let's have at it when it comes to all the other things. Um, and I do think that there's something to be said about analyzing the why of the racism and the abuse that Kamala Harris has experienced. I don't. Yeah. So I mean, that's just my take. I don't. I think I've also been very intentional on this channel and on Night School about bringing. I mean, the night before election, who did I bring on? I brought on people. I brought on no ceasefire, no vote people. That's not coincidence. I brought on people who would push. It's not a coincidence. But you voted Trump. I don't know where you get that from anything that's been said by any of us. We may again. Uh, I don't know. I don't get it. Um, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why you'd say that. I feel like I've said the opposite, but at this point, I don't know what to say. Prayer does absolutely nothing in this country. Education does. I agree. By the way, I'm taking questions, y'all. Questions and comments, and I need to pull up the election updates as well because I don't want to. I'm over here yapping and new stuff. I'm sure has happened, but the GOP flipping the Senate um, is another issue. It ain't going to end well, y'all. It's not going to end well, and you know the idea of saying this is the Democrats' fault is right. Saying it's the Gaza issues principle, you're correct. Um, there are people who are very vulnerable in this country, though, who are going to die because of it. There are people who are literally going to die because of who's in power. And to be clear, plenty of folk going to die under Democratic leadership. This isn't a good versus bad thing, and I think too often corporate media makes you think that it's the Democrats versus the Republicans, it's the good guys versus the bad guys. I'm saying they're all bad. Um, and I'm looking at this map. I mean, Jesus, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the electoral map right now, and it's just getting more and more ugly. It's getting more and more ugly, and I'm not sure what could happen. Trump is now the projected winner in Georgia, which is a flip, by the way. I'm going to say that again. Georgia is a projected victory for Donald Trump. And as a projected victory for Donald Trump, I'm not even sure if there is a path to victory for Kamala. There may be. I suspect there is, but she'd have to win. She'd have to run the table at this point. Pennsylvania is too close to call, but she's down almost 4 points. Michigan is too close to call, but she's down 6 points at this point. Wisconsin's too close to call, but she's down 4. Arizona's neck and neck. Nevada, the results are just in. So, I mean, I think at this point, I've been covering elections for a long time now, and it's not impossible, but it's like being down 50 or 40. You know what I'm saying? In the basketball game in the third quarter, like you got to chalk it to some point. Look, Donald Trump is likely the next president. He's likely the 47th president of the United States. Again, North Carolina was a little bit of a stretch, and they ran such a terrible candidate for governor. Georgia should not have been a stretch. Georgia used to be a reach for Democrats. They've come to expect it. Atlanta couldn't save her. Fulton County, DeKalb County couldn't save her. I don't. Anyway, I'll go there. I want to take some of these questions and comments. But let me just say, we absolutely should not be blaming uh, the left for this, the real left. We shouldn't be blaming Palestinians or Muslims or Arabs for this. At the end of the day, no one is owed your vote. And whoever, regardless of who I think you should vote for, regardless of why I think you should vote, or what, or any of those things, at the end of the day, it's the candidate who is responsible for earning the vote. Uh, and I don't think the Democrats made the case. I don't think they did. I think there's a hell of a case to make for stopping Trump at all costs. Um, but that can't be your only argument. Is look how bad that guy is. As I said before, it can't be the Bobby Womack defense. If you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight. You gotta give me more than that. And I think a lot of voters felt like that wasn't it. Now there are a lot of voters, and I spent a lot of time this cycle, perhaps more than any other recent election, talking to voters. And there were a lot of voters, I think, who just did not like her at the personal level, who did not like her as an idea, who did not like the way she was presented to us, without being part of the nomination process at the top of the ticket. There are people who just don't want to elect a woman. There are people who, because there's an argument to be made that Kamala is no worse than Biden. She's no worse than these other people. There's all that stuff. And I think those things are real, which is what Kimi Obayade Acosta and I were sort of exchanging about, to the extent that I'm saying, yeah, there's some people who are going to say her name wrong and who are going to call her all kinds of awful, misogynistic things. But there also have to be policies there. There have to be progressive policies there. Americans want to stop the genocide. They want a weapons embargo. They want reparations. There are things you could say and do that would get us there. Shit, lie to me. Damn. All right, let's see. Bill Williamson said, we still have a little hope Kamala wins. However, let's all look at the positive that we do have. Night school will be here tomorrow regardless. That's a win. Thanks for going live, Mark. Thank you for that, Bill. I mean, look, regardless of who wins this race, our job is to be a thorn in the side of the powerful. I would rather not be a thorn in the side of Trump. I'd rather be somebody else, but it is what it is. And we're going to fight Trump at every step of the way, but we're also going to fight the Democrats at every step of the way. Just because Trump becomes the top of the ticket and he becomes the face of this empire again, that doesn't mean that suddenly Democrats are our friends and allies. We have to struggle against them too. We have to organize against them too. Hakeem Jeffries is the minority leader, a majority leader, but let's see how this election goes. Right now, he's the majority leader. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm Hakeem Jeffries is speaker. Let's see, with Hakeem Jeffries as speaker, what happens. If Hakeem Jeffries is the minority leader, let's see what happens. If Hakeem Jeffries, and the reason I'm saying that is because if there's I'm sorry, we have more stuff coming in too. We have more stuff coming in. The update is, oof, that ain't looking good. That ain't look good. The gap in Pennsylvania looks a little bit wider even than we thought, or than it was. Yeah, that ain't good. Anyway, as I was saying, right now, your House Minority Leader, but let's say the Democrats pull over. Let's see what the House looks like, actually. So I don't have to speak out. Nope, it ain't happening. So he ain't gonna be Speaker of the House. So but let's just say in 2 years he becomes Speaker of the House, or in 4 years he becomes Speaker of the House. We have to struggle against him too. No one has been more ardently Zionist than Hakeem Jeffries. So my point is just, these blue and red colors don't define our political agenda or our political opposition. We have to actually struggle against them every single day. Feelings on Elon's enlightenment. Elon Musk has played such a bizarrely It's been weird to watch Elon turn it up a notch at the end, but it shouldn't be surprising to us. I mean, Elon Musk put it into. I mean, he was like, between him and Rogan. It was like, look, we are all in for Trump. We're going to make sure Trump wins. And I think there was some anxiety they had that Trump wouldn't win, and I think this is part of their effort to get him over the top, get him over the hump. And the reason why it was important to get him, the reason why it was important to get him over the hump was there's a lot of money tied up. All these candidates are corporate candidates, but Donald Trump is a lot more unabashed in his embrace of these alliances. In other words, there's big money in Donald Trump being president. The billionaires are happy right now. The billionaires are ecstatic, and Elon is at the top of that food chain. There's a lot of money in this alliance. And watching him manipulate the information that was coming out, watching Elon Musk control the algorithms, watching Elon Musk misrepresent polls, doing everything from discouraging voters from coming out to encouraging the other kinds of voters to come out. All of it is part of the plan. I mean, Elon Musk is very happy with the outcome, but let's be clear, Elon Musk shaped the outcome. And now he's on his own platform being a jerk about it. If Trump wins, how many weeks do you think until he removes them? See, this is the thing that I don't want you all to start to do. Donald Trump is a legitimate threat to democracy. There's no doubt about that. But we have the power to stop Donald Trump. But I also don't want to romanticize what life is like under Democrats. Again, I think Trump is demonstrably and decidedly worse. I have no doubt that he is, in fact. But that's not the only piece of this conversation. What's happening to our rights right now under Democratic rule? What's happening to our access and our freedoms? How is protest being criminalized on college campuses right now under Democratic rule? I'm just saying, let's not romanticize what's happening under Democrats, even if I can be honest enough to say, and I have to be honest enough to say, look, Trump is worse on certain key issues, right? Karen, do you have absolutely nothing to apologize for? You defended a black woman from racist disrespect while still critiquing our Gaza policy. You did what you thought was right, man. Respect for you. Chef Shai said, what do we do now? How can we help change things? We got to organize. You only get what you organize for. We have to continue to pressure and organize against the powerful. That's the only thing we can do. Political education is important. That's what we do here at night school. I think that's the goal of it. But we have to join organizations. We have to work. We have to struggle. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, neither was going to stop the genocide in Gaza. So it's us that has to apply that pressure and continue to fight on a range of fronts so that we know who and what our opposition is. But I can't pretend I don't worry about the Supreme Court. I can't pretend I don't worry about some of these other outcomes. If Trump wins, what's the plan when he allows Gaza and the West Bank to be wiped out? I mean, Joe Biden is allowing Gaza and the West Bank to be wiped out. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to go to the other extreme either. Like, yes, I do think Trump is worse on Gaza, but that's only a testament to how bad Trump is. The Biden administration is objectively awful, indefensibly awful on this issue. I mean, there's just nothing about them there's nothing redemptive about their redeeming rather about their policy here. So, this idea that Trump wins and now we got to think about Gaza being wiped out. Gaza's already what 85% of. I mean, Gaza. Almost everybody in Gaza has been displaced. Like 90% of people, 85% of schools have been damaged. I think it's 80% of the whole built environment, civil infrastructure has been wiped out. Anywhere from 50 to 300,000 people have been killed. Settlement expansion has happened right now under Biden, vis-a-vis Netanyahu. So, again, let's not pretend that things were easy or that things were smooth now and it's being interrupted by Trump. It's not. Um, Someone asked, built on the previous question, said, beyond today, what is the next move? Where and when are we organizing? How are we going to insulate? How are we going to work to insulate our most vulnerable? That's the question. And I want y'all to answer that. There's organizers in here who are far more engaged than I am in organizational work at this point. Drop some stuff in the comments. I'm going to take as many of these as I can. Thank you, Isaac Hemseed, for gifting the 10 memberships, yo. This is how we keep the channel going. So please, please, please drop in what you can when you can. Let's see what we got here. North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Still, that gap in Michigan is getting bigger and bigger. It's looking like, just based on what I'm seeing here, Kamala Harris is down 250,000 votes in Michigan. With another, there's 2 million votes remaining, and Detroit could show out in Michigan, and this could be a whole different ball game. It's possible. It's possible. But right now, it's looking like a mollywhopping. And for those that are wondering, if you're wondering, Jill Stein has 19,852 votes in Michigan. So to be clear, if every single person in Michigan were to have not voted for Jill Stein and had voted for Kamala Harris, which is itself a faulty premise, it wouldn't matter. So Green Party has the right to run regardless, but I just want to be very clear, at the end of the day, when the blame game comes, that ain't where you should be looking. It ain't the Green Party. Green Party's not the reason. Again, the Democrats have to at some point be accountable to themselves for the campaigns that they run and for the policies that they advance. I'm looking at North Carolina again, just on that Green Party point, Jill Stein is down a couple 100,000 votes with, Jill had 24,000 votes. She got half of a percentage point, and again, even if she got 10%, like, they would be her votes. They would be her votes. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, why are voters making this choice? And think about that rather than this other stuff. Anyway, thank you, CLN84. Thank you for giving space for conversation, keeping us informed. Let's keep night school going into the future. We're going to need, we're going to need night school more than ever. Progressives asked Democrats, please be better, and the party said, no, that's the point. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party has to wrestle with the fact that they had a very clear pathway to victory. I think if they fight for the ceasefire, just the ceasefire, I think you win Pennsylvania. I think you win Michigan. I think you win Wisconsin, and I think you have a different campaign right now. The only question I have is why. How did Dems think a genocide wouldn't cost? Because I think they're banking on the fact that standing with Israel has always been a winning move. When has there been a Democratic candidate that has paid a price? When has there been any political candidate in America who has paid a price for standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel, to use their quote, without an inch of daylight? So I think that they went down swinging they went with the game plan, like, go with what got you here. Dance with who you came with, I think that's their approach. Blame the Dems, not the voters, y'all. That's right. Are you scared about how much damage Jared Kushner is going to do in the Middle East the next 4 years with Saudi Israel? Yeah, I am. I haven't been happy with the damage that Biden has done in the Middle East in the last 4 years. But yeah, we saw the Abraham Accords, the weapons. It's a defense deal. It didn't create peace. It just normalized relationship with the Israeli apartheid state. I think Israeli normalization, and I think there's some hiccups in the Saudi-U.S. alliance, but I think Jared Kushner et al. will get past that and advance their vicious policy in the Middle East. I don't know what that means for Iran. I don't know what that means for Syria. I don't know what that means for Lebanon. I don't know what that means for Iraq yet. But it don't mean nothing good. I'm curious to know how Trump approaches the Middle East this time around, how he talks about it, how he frames it. Does he bring back Jared Kushner as his kind of Middle East czar, or does he move in a different direction? But we know that as much as Trump says that he's standing for a peaceful Middle East, that's with constraints. They absolutely want to see the destruction of Iran. They absolutely want to provoke Iran, and they absolutely want to use Hamas and Hezbollah as pretext, as pretext for really destroying Iran and maybe creating a space and creating sort of a process that can't be reversed easily, a dangerous process. Tony Diane said, "I am disgusted that we now have to listen to the world break down what this black woman did wrong. When you put her up against him, she was flawless." I mean, she was flawless in the debate, but part of the flawlessness comes when two neoliberal candidates stand next to each other. Some of the things that allow for the flawlessness to emerge are actually the contradiction. So, for example, neither they were fighting for who loved Israel more on that stage. So, yeah, no one is going to point out how awful both of them are on the issue, or education policy. We could say the same thing. Fracking, we could say the same thing. I can name 5 issues where they were so similar that it was dangerous. Now, again, there are a million issues where Kamala Harris is objectively better to me, and where there have been gains for workers' rights, gains for students, gains for mothers or childbearing people more broadly. All that is so true. So again, I don't think they're the same, but I do think that if her flawlessness if she can only be flawless standing next to him, we got to ask about some of those flaws that are getting obscured and the contradictions that produce them. Um, do you think this will help third parties since it doesn't look like they can be blamed this time? I do, actually. I think this is an interesting moment because you can't say Jill Stein um, caused this. And even if you could, which you can't, America has elected Donald Trump before. They know exactly what they're getting. And a whole bunch of Americans said, you know what? I'll take Trump again. They're not confused. They're not hoodwinked. They're not bamboozled. They know Donald Trump and they chose him again. You can't keep blaming the third party for that. Shout out to Nathaniel Thomas, who just joined the channel. Do you think Kamala's refusal to break from Biden was her biggest downfall? I mean, there is this moment on The View and other places where she had an opportunity to say how she's different than Joe Biden and she didn't take it. But I don't think that's the worst thing. I mean, we saw Al Gore struggle with this as well in 2000. But at the end of the day, if it's successful policies that are emerging, then not being distinguishable from Biden wouldn't be a bad thing. But at a moment where people are saying stop the genocide and you don't have a distinguishable policy, it's tough. Bill Williams said, off topic, what is in that jug you're drinking from? It better be milk and not water. Also, do you feel like the Democrats would go more right because of this L? This is water. It's literally box water. But will the Democrats go? If the Democrats go even more right after this, they deserve to lose a million more elections. At some point, they have to understand that progressive policies are popular with the American people. It's that simple. Let me check the news reports just to make sure nothing different has happened. Oh man, this map is crazy. North Carolina, Georgia. This is rough. Harris won Hawaii, of course. Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Again, there's a path here, but it's a narrow one. Again, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying it won't happen. Um, Ted Cruz won again, y'all, by the way. Oof. Life ain't fair sometimes. And by sometime, I mean ever. Kamala Harris is not losing because she's a biracial woman. If at all, it's extremely minimal. It's because the performance as VP is bad and her known policies as president troubles. I would split the difference on that, Boaz, Kim Music. I think that there are a lot of people who don't give a damn about her policies and don't like her, and her policies become a pretext for not voting for her. Whether I think there are significant sectors who do care about her policies, but here's the thing: if we say her policies are terrible and they're just like the other people won. Her policies are that close to Trump. Trump won. Our policies are that close to Biden. Biden won. So it's not the policies, Again, it should be. And there are so many activists, so many organizers, so many young people, so many college students, so many Arabs, so many Muslims, so many South Asians who are absolutely resisting because of her genocidal policy agenda in the Middle East. But I think there are a lot of people who actually just don't want to elect a black woman president. I'm in those rooms. I'm in these spaces where I'm hearing people. I mean, I won't say who because of the context where it emerged, but I mean, there are people who I have debated on national television who have off the record told me their primary reason it wasn't so much race actually. There was he said, I don't want a woman to run the country. We had a knockdown, drag out battle about it. But the point is, that is a thing. Kyle said, hey, big head. And 77 figures at Mark this is the one. Exactly. That's my point. At some point, like these people are running to be Pharaoh. Just checking your comments. Feel free to keep dropping comments in. Reading the comments here. What was that? Y'all are really interested and obsessed with this. Not obsessed, but y'all are really focused on the water I'm drinking. It's y'all don't drink box water? And why would y'all want me to be drinking 16 ounces of milk at 1 a.m.? That's wild. Thank you, Sammy. Sammy says for becoming a channel member. You're appreciated more than you know. Happy Guy Fawkes Day family. Happy Guy Fawkes Day family. And Shadi, I will since his generous donation. Thank you. Woo! So much going on in the world. So much going on. So out there in the comments, does anybody still think that Kamala Harris is going to win this race? And that's a genuine question. Free full of steam, my bro from different mother. Yes, sir. Mohammed Zaghari. Thank you, my brother. That generous donation. Y'all still thinking? How do y'all think this is going to end? Ivy and Callaway say Gavin Newsom would have won with the same exact platform. That's my point. Yes, the platform is shit, but Democrats win with shitty platforms all the time. There is something different here, and it's not policy. Again, it should be policy. Gaza is enough of a reason for a voter to say, no, that's my red line. But Biden won the presidency with the same Zionist policy. That's all I'm saying. So that's what we have to answer your question, Midori. We have to organize. We have to fight. Do we know at this point whether Gaza is a determining issue or if sexism and racism is? I heard male voters, white and non-white, is a major factor. I mean, here's the thing. White women had the opportunity to run or to vote, based on Roe v. Wade, based on abortion rights. It wasn't their priority issue. They voted for Donald Trump, despite the fact that he was very clearly an opponent to those issues. Gaza is a big issue. but so are some of these other issues. And I think they all mix in. I have no idea what percentage was what. There's just no way to know. I mean, at least not for me to know. Yes, I have a back scratcher. Yes, I need a back scratcher. Oh, it's broken, man. Look, my back scratcher broke. Now it's a crisis. Is it wrong for me to want recession levels of pain? Make it obvious to how dumb half the country is. Boggles my mind people vote against their interests. I mean, there are a lot of people who believe that Trump is their interest, that their economic fortunes will be better. They think Trump was giving out stimulus checks. They think the trains were running on time under Trump. I mean, like I said, I have never had so many conversations with with black people about the virtues of Trump than as I did in the last month. And that's wild to me. And what it says is that not only are you not going to see a kind of codification um, of Roe v. Wade again, or you're not going to see the return of Roe v. Wade vis-a-vis a new method, which will be the codification. You may not see that. You're not going to see that. Women's issues, reproductive justice issues, childbearing people issues, all of them are getting thrown by the wayside, and it's happening because of Trump. True or false? Dems will continue to struggle and lose the working class until they realize that being constrained by special interest donors is incompatible with winning the working class without resorting to xenophobia. True. True. What I think is more interesting is not the true or false of it, but the until part, right? So I don't know if they'll ever willfully or willingly separate from the donor class. Again, the same way Joe Biden would rather go down in flames than challenge Israel. Like they're the corporate interest in politics fuels Democratic and Republican Party moves, and I think they'd rather go down with the stuff in flames than to deal with the NRA or all these special interest donors, who are making very clear what their issues are and what their needs are. I'm going to probably head out, but maybe I'll check back in later. Christian said, for what I remember, Mark holds her accountable for supporting the genocide just as equally as he does Biden, while also saying Trump was. That is my position. You just summed up my position, right? Joe Biden is president. The genocide happens under his watch. It's his genocide. I would not hold Kamala Harris responsible for the genocide in Gaza, except that she hasn't said how she's different. And she says she's going to continue to support Israel's right to defend itself, which means Kamala Harris is going to continue to prosecute the same war. And the fact that it's framed as Israeli self-defense only reinforces how dangerous it is as an idea. Anyway, Mexican Standoff, thank you so much for your generous donation. Muhammad Ali, thank you so much for your generous donation. Rosabilly said, what now? Now we use the fear and rage and we, oh, I'm sorry, you were answering as a rhetorical. What now? Now we use the fear and rage and we organize. We organize our communities. We do mutual aid. We build. Mark, could you focus in high school on organizing? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think, particularly for the next few weeks, I'm going to really focus on the organizing part. Like, what do we do next? I think that is important. Alberto Ramos Araiza said, when do we acknowledge that we can't be fascist? I mean, I think that's another piece of this, right? Ultimately, victory doesn't come in the ballot box, but I don't want that truth, which it is a truth, to trump, no pun intended, this other point, right? Which is like, we can mitigate at the ballot box. We can stop. We can keep things at arm's length at the ballot box. We'll have more terrain to fight if we vote certain ways, but you're not going to vote your way to liberation. Is it true that Harris cannot lose Pennsylvania to win? At this point, yeah. But at this point, yeah. We see Yeah, it's still too close to call. But again, Trump is winning in every state. I mean, at some point, you just got to say, come on. Jesus, this is ugly. This is turning into a bloodbath. If you can, how do you see the Democratic establishment figuring out that they should campaign on progressive positive? I mean, I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know what else can happen. The polls show what Americans care about. The polls show what Americans want. The Democratic Party still stays toward the center. So hard head made for soft behind, as my grandma used to say. All right, y'all. I just want to give you all an election update. If it's back up again later, if there's a major material development, I'll let you know. Kamala Harris has not spoken. Her campaign said they're not going to speak tonight. That means they're not going to concede tonight, barring something extraordinary. So we'll keep following. We'll keep following. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.